All right. My name is Daniel Wyckoff. I will be going over my endangered species that I chose for the Ecological Interaction Project. The species that I did choose ended up being the blue-throated macaw, or the Latin name for it is Ara glaucocularis. So blue-throated macaws actually have a population of 200 to 303. Now this population can vary mostly because there are other populations throughout the world, but the one that is mainly in northern Bolivia is this 208 to 303 population. Now, the blue-throated macaws do belong to the kingdom Animalia and the phylum Chordata, but their genus is Ara. Now, they are herbivores. They eat anything between seeds, small bugs, plants. They don't eat anything. Oh, my apologies. They don't eat anything so far as to like animals or like smaller animals. They do have a lifespan of about 50 years. Now that is if they are in the wild. If they are in zoos or any other type of private reserve or collection, um, they typically do not live that long, purely because of the social aspect as well. They like being with their own kind and in their own environment. Like I said, they are located mostly in northern Bolivia, and they were actually thought to be extinct until 1992. Then they were rediscovered by a few scientists in Bolivia. Now, blue-throated macaws are a pretty social species, mostly with their own kind and with their other family, I should say, or other genuses or genera is the name for it. They mostly live together in about small groups of 7 to 9. Now, there is a actual um, group of about 70 of them that are located in South America. They are monogamous. They do not have any other mates unless a mate does end up passing away, then they will mate again, but they mate for life. They have a skill actually called third-party imitation that was thought to be only a human skill. Now, this skill specifically allows them to basically imitate anything a human does without having to be trained to do it. They are very affectionate birds with other species, mostly related to the same family or same genus. They aren't very affectionate to other species as far as like different families, or I would dare say even different kingdoms. They are mostly active in the day and they sleep at night, and they are very sedentary species, meaning that they don't move around a lot and they stay in these same nesting grounds for about a year until they end up moving somewhere else. Now, like I said, they do compete with other species, not, I wouldn't say not, but they do compete with other species in the same family and other species as far as, owls, hawks, um, the blue and yellow macaws that do actually look very similar, but do have a few differences. They're very complex social groups, meaning that in order to get into that social group, you kind of have to give off the same behavior and actions as a certain group. Um, there is no really like male to female ratio that kind of limits them from mating. It's mostly because of the lack of mating grounds that they have that mating barrier to them. Now they are very territorial birds, and that comes with the competition as far as for the nesting grounds, as they do compete with a lot of different species in their environment. I did put a little YouTube video down at the bottom that kind of goes over the basics of blue-throated macaws. Like I said, they do compete with a lot of other species, bats, owls, toucans, for the nesting grounds. A lot of the species that they compete with are actually species that are considered predators to them. Toucans, hawks, monkeys, a few other ones. They do attack the adult blue-throated macaws, but most of these species kind of go after the young since they are kind of hard to fight back. They communicate through really loud um, caws or squawks. This is mostly to sense danger. The quieter caws are more for communication than they are for danger. They are actually, fun fact, one of the main distributors of seeds across the Amazon forest. That is next to cattle as well. Those are the top two competitors for the main distributor. They actually have no negative side effects to their environment. Everything that they do is positive. Um, they are the main distributor of the Mutaku palm, which is actually the tree that they go after the most when it comes to mating grounds with that competition, of course. Now, as far as conservation goes, is mostly the basics as far as it goes for conservation, right? That they have their own private ground, that they're monitored 24/7, that they're allowed to be in the wild and not just in a facility, being that can also cause shorter lifespans as well. Landowners around northern Bolivia and around those other private reserves do plant seeds, mostly the Mataku trees that we talked about before, to make up for the deforestation that humans did have a problem with. There are organizations monitoring the nest, National Geographic. Another reference that I have actually is one of the organizations that does monitor the nests for the blue-throated macaws, and that's mostly for the young ones as well. They replace or in the process of replacing real feathers with artificial feathers. It is actually illegal to transport and take these animals. It has been since 1984, whenever they started to see a decline in a lot of endangered animals, mostly because of poachers. The real feathers were used in rituals and mostly parades, as we see in the movie Rio. It's not too far off that they do use the real feathers for their outfits and their costumes that they have, which is actually very endangering to the species. And a lot of organizations throughout the northern Bolivia private reserve that they actually have preemptively put up nests that are pretty fortified because the blue-throated macaws are highly intelligent, but they also set up very, very complex nests for their young. And then next is the references that I have used for both my research essay and for the PowerPoint as